This is Memorial Day weekend. Who do we remember today from our own memories and our own family lines who has died as a veteran in a foreign war? I know of someone. My husband's family had such a person. Over 1.1 million lives have been lost among Americans fighting in wars, beginning with the American Revolution. And the bloodiest of them all was the Civil War. Today I'm going to tell you a story. 10 years ago, my husband and I made a trip to Gettysburg around the 4th of July. Big mistake. We drove the car tour, stopping to see the various sites. And at one of those stops, we were surrounded by fields, cornfields, if I remember correctly, exactly what they were. And this story that I'm going to tell you was inspired by that visit, as I pondered the battles that might have been fought there, turning those fields into fields soaked with blood. Once upon a time, there were two boys, Jacques Léon and Milton Ellencombe. Jacques had enlisted in the Confederate Army in order to help his dad. And the other boy, Milton, was several years younger, rather naive, and had run away in order to join the army without even being clear as to which army he was joining. Thanks to the older boy who took him under his wing, Milton was sheltered from most everything having to do with war. He had barely seen a battle, much less actually been in one. On this day, though, their regiment had been encamped, and they had begun and started and even maybe finished preparing because they were supposed to be called out that day. But the day had kind of lingered on, and the boys kind of became bored, and they decided that they would hike to a nearby creek in order to fill their canteens. Well, they got there, and Milton fell into the creek, and Jacques joined him very shortly afterwards. As boys will, they just could not resist taking a dip in those cool, clear waters. When they finally returned to where the camp had been, it was gone. No one was there. Well, they waited around for a little while in hopes that someone would realize that they were missing and come looking for them, but no one did. So they started out on their own, trying to follow the signs of movement left behind by their comrades through woods and across streams as the sun continued to climb in the sky. And they came to a field, a cornfield or a wheat field. It really doesn't matter because it was a mess, completely overgrown with weeds, and at the same time, nothing really to take cover with. So they debated about how they should proceed, and they finally agreed that they had to go through that field. Well, Jacques, with his gun at the ready, cautiously led the way, crouching low to the ground. But Milton, he dawdled, searching the stalks for anything that might be edible on them, and just delighting in the feel of the sun, even though it was getting hot and there was not any shade for them. Jacques was constantly calling out to him to stop dawdling. Get down, hurry up. Eventually, he let Milton get out in front of him, where he could kind of keep an eye on him. Are you crazy? What's the matter with you? Aren't you afraid of dying? Nope, I'll die when my time comes and not before, came Milton's reply. Well, they crossed field after field, and after several hours, they paused for a little rest and a little refreshment, such as it was, because they'd already drunk all the water that they had gotten from the creek. They sat low on the ground to let the weeds hide them. Milton pulled from his pocket a scrap of paper with a biscuit that was wrapped up in it and took the nub of a pencil and began to write. "What are you doing?" Jacques asked. "Just a song in my head." Milton showed the other boy the piece of paper. The notes on it didn't mean anything to Jacques, but the words he read, well, that was a different story. "Hey, can I get a copy of this for my dad? It'd be a comfort to him, me being here and all." So Jacques took off his cap and he pulled out an old envelope, and Milton gave him what he had written. And Jacques scrawled the words across the envelope and then stuffed the whole thing back in his cap and put his cap back onto his head. Then the boys heard a sound coming from behind them. Cautiously, Jacques stuck his head out to see what was going on. And he sat back quickly, and with excitement in his voice, he told the other boy, "Milton, we didn't get left after all. That's our regiment. We're way out in front of them. Come on." So Jacques, cautiously but quickly, started back the way he had come, toward the other soldiers. But no, as was his way, he stood up erect and started running, waving his arms, when a shot rang out, and Milton fell to the ground. Jacques stopped mid-stride, turned around, and even started to head back to where Milton had fallen. But at that very moment, everything turned to bloody war, and there was no time. With bullets blazing in both directions, Jacques did what he had to do. He joined the battle and fought alongside the other soldiers, trying not to notice the field littered with the bodies of the fallen, and somewhere the body of his friend in a field of blood. When the battle was over and the last of the defeated were gone, after the wounded and weakened were taken back to their camp, some of the men and a lone officer from the Union Army returned to the battlefield to start cleanup. He saw the small form in a Confederate uniform, and as he rolled the body face up, the cap fell away, and he saw the face of his very own son. As the men prepared to leave, he gathered up the body and carried it back with him. He asked permission from the commander to hold a full military funeral for his son, but was refused. And he located a single bugler who was willing to play the notes that had been found on the piece of paper in the boy's pocket. And it was played at the graveside of his son. This story actually pulls parts from a variety of different things. I believe it's fairly reflective of what might have been the case during the time of the Civil War. But this piece of music, its origin is completely unknown, although there are a variety of legends, and I've drawn on that legend. In the legend, the notes of the music would have been written before. This is all that they would have had at the graveside. The words themselves were added sometime later, and the original words to that music go like this. Fading light dims the night, and a star gems the sky gleaming bright. From afar drawing nigh falls the night. Day is done, gone the sun. From the light of the dawn shineth bright. All is well, safely rest. God is nigh. Then good night, peaceful night, till the light of the dawn shineth bright. God is near, do not fear. Friend, good night. Memorial Day is an observance that evolved from a day set aside to decorate the graves of fallen soldiers in the Civil War. It is still a day to remember those who have died for our freedom and safety. And I would include in that not only those who died on the battlefield, but those who died because of consequences that came from the environment of those wars, such as the Vietnam War, and even those who have been burdened so much mentally and emotionally that they killed themselves, to remember them. It is a day that calls us to see to it that those fallen in war have not died in vain. And it is a day that demands that we stand ready to take up their banner should the need arise, even to fight and die as they have done. Now, we as Christians, we live in the promise of God in Jesus Christ. And we honor Memorial Day. Memorial Day is something that we are quite able to relate to in its meaning, because we have an even better reason for celebrating. To remember the one who died for us, to see to it that that one shall not have died in vain. And even if we are called upon, as he has done, to answer the call, to stand ready to take up his banner each and every day of every year, to live and to die as he has done for us. Paul wrote, "So then, brethren, we are debtors, not to the flesh, to live according to the flesh. For if you live according to the flesh, you will die. But if by the Spirit you put to death the deeds of the body, you will live. For all who are led by the Spirit of God are sons of God. For you did not receive the spirit of slavery to fall back into fear, but you have received the spirit of sonship. When we cry, Abba, Father, it is the Spirit himself bearing witness with our spirit that we are children of God. And if children, then heirs, heirs of God and fellow heirs with Christ, provided that we suffer with him in order that we may also be glorified with him." We enter into the life and death of Jesus as we love God and our neighbors as ourselves, and consider others as better than ourselves humbly. We treat others as more important than ourselves, standing in the integrity of our faith, refusing what would taint our faith, and refusing to be robbed of our faith. And for the sake of loving others, we bear the burden of being not heard, of being not understood, and even those times when we can't walk away from the unbelief of others. And in all things, we give thanks, and we act with love, so that the love of God shall be the final victory. In a world where there is war, we remember that the war has been won, and we do all that we are able to do to plant God's peace in Jesus Christ for a final end of all war with peace and justice for all.